But I think first up is Yixuan Pan, who is going to be talking about COIL.
Thank you, Bonnie. Hello, I'm here. I think I'm a fast walker. I'm here already. This is Yixuan Pan. I am assistant professor in art, so I'm excited to share my COIL experience with you all. This is a collaboration between my class called The Artist as Visionary and Dreamer with this class called Intercultural Communication from Kumamoto University. So this class is not only intercultural, intercontinent, it's also interdisciplinary. So my class is an art class. We're focusing on visual art and digital culture, while their class is focusing on intercultural communication, right, including language and more. We were able to put this together and experiment in, oh my God, that's my number. Big number. Time is ticking. So into this container of dream, a shared dream, where we're using digital collage and dream interpretation to see what happened. And overall, this is, we had asynchronous meetings. So at the end of the day, nobody actually met with anybody, nobody has Skypes, and we relied on this platform called Padlet. I think many like COIL practitioners use. It's a website. Basically, we have co-collaborated a website together. Okay, so I am sharing one big project we did together. We started off that our students would write a description of image that in their head and then send to their digital pen pal in Japan. And then the Japanese students from Kumamoto University would respond with an image taken from their phone. And then based on those images, our students using the techniques we cover in class to how to digitally manipulate images, make a collage. And then the images are passed back through Padlet. The Japanese student would then record an audio memo to interpret that image, to interpret that dream, and also provide some visual analysis. So kind of, back and forth, we are creating a dream world together. This whole project was in this lifespan of 4 weeks, and I think we have pretty successful outcomes. What we could see, it was very stimulating, exciting for our students, especially as a relatively smaller campus, also as people who create images. It's exciting to share your work, not only with more people, but also with international audience in this way. It feels really mysterious and exciting. And for this COIL collaboration, many things came out from it. Kumamoto University actually came to visit our campus twice in consecutive years, 2 different small groups. I helped facilitate their visit. And then this also helped myself and my co-director, Julia Denses, develop a study abroad and complete that study abroad in Japan. And Kumamoto University was one of the main home base, we would say, that we also visited some of the students that was in the class. And one student who came to visit was really proudly wearing the UW swag. Very fun. And we're hoping to continue this. I'm actually signed up to do this COIL partnership with the same professor again in the fall, and we're hoping to, visit each other, have some sort of more of a formalized partnership perhaps in the future. And this is one of the photos when they came to visit on our campus. Thank you all, and I have 19 seconds, yes!
Me. This COIL is from my Making of Modern Africa class, and that's a class that's near and dear to my heart, the class that I work hardest on, because as you can imagine, more than 1,000 ethnic linguistic groups and 54 countries cannot be discussed in 10 weeks. What we can do is identify opportunities for students to appreciate the wholeness of human lives. So I wanted them to identify activities, innovation, hobbies, everyday life that they could connect with, that they could relate to, and that reflected a broader, more extensive framework of what understanding cultural change is like. And what we did with this group is connect to a class of university students, which means students who in many, many ways are just like our students, and in many ways not at all. Eye rolls represents truth-telling. When we roll our eyes, everyone knows what we think. And data stipends means paying for minutes of internet access. So COIL, one of the challenges with every COIL practitioner I've ever spoken to is, on the one hand, we talk about reciprocity and cultural humility, and on the other hand, the stipend of $1,200 goes to me, and the class times that get accommodated are accommodated to my class time. So I have always thought, could we encourage just a small portion of the stipend to be used as a budget, to be used in a way to facilitate actually making the class function? And is there a way to get that $200 in the future when the COIL fellowship stipend is over? We did 2 iterations of this program, and that included the first one. We looked for ways to rent a classroom at the right time with reliable internet that students could get to and from, and had good audio-visual. That was very difficult, and we ended up with 2 students, 2 graduate students, and the instructor. Good conversation, but not nearly as much engagement, and there were difficulties. So the second time, I paid $200, and that meant enough that could be shared among the volunteers, because they were agreeing to read a novel that is no longer on their program. So these students volunteered to read a novel, show up at night, participate with our students, all basically on a volunteer basis, when their credits come from one final exam score that is based on the novels they're supposed to read. It turned out, though, my $200 was enough to get a whole group of people, because just the minutes of data, a little bit of something interesting, was enough to bring folks. This Zoom picture is not actually my Zoom, it's a fake Zoom picture, but it is what it looked like. And what I want you to see is how easily you can see people's expression and emotional responses more than just what gets said. And so we were able to have a much greater connection. We were able to talk about extremely difficult topics that showed up in the post-colonial feminist novel that we read about a woman's disappointment with women's rights claims in the post-independence period, but also, like, how would we feel? How would I feel as a woman if my husband died having to marry his husband in order to be able to stay in the family home with my children? That's called wife inheritance. And the Gambian participants really wanted to know how we felt about wife inheritance and what we would feel like. And so that led to some really sort of deep and difficult conversations, but ways where the students saw very easily that these things are fought about in all of our communities. And so the real eye rolling happened when one young man talked about his right to have 4 wives and what he expected. And what he said was not necessarily not expected by the students, our students, but all the eye rolls of the women were impressive, because then we could see that these are things that are very seriously contested. And so you see the quote there that when I asked someone how she felt in response to her asking me, she said, "You inherit a stereo, you do not inherit me." And so that was a very useful thing for students to see, that these things happen together, they happen at the same time. And that led us to be able to then talk about even more difficult ideas, like when women make claims for rights, very often that is attacked with the argument that women's rights is a white thing, it's a Western thing, and it's a colonial thing. And that, of course, ignores that colonial administrations around the world undermined women's rights. They did not bring more rights or more resources. And so all of that was an opportunity for our students to collaborate in wonderful ways. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everybody. Are we holding up okay? All right, let's do this. So I'm Jutta Heller.
Hello, I'm Jack Vincent.
We are here to present on supporting our biomedical sciences students at the beginning of the major and at the end, or closer to the end of the major. This is part of the student experience project that we were part of this year.
And the reason Jutta and I are presenting together is because we were teaching two courses that really bookend our major in unofficial ways last quarter. So our T-Biomed 310 course is a skills-based course where students are really learning how to use resources available to them, all surrounding kind of developing and learning about possible capstone opportunities. That is a requirement for our major. And then I was teaching the genetics and genomics course, which is a content-heavy course that really is a course that students often take in their last year, if they're not last quarter in our major.
If you didn't hear Menica earlier, in the student experience project, we administered 2 surveys to the students, earlier in the quarter and then later in the quarter. After doing the survey in my class, I was focusing mostly on the social belonging and social connectedness learning condition that also Menica mentioned earlier as being part of the SEP project and the Ascend surveys. So I had noticed some lower scores in those categories. And my approach to, once I debriefed with the students on those results in week 3 or 4 of the last quarter, I asked them to reflect in the classroom briefly to themselves and then write down their thoughts on Post-it notes as to how we could improve our social connectedness in the classroom. What can we do? What can I do? What can they do? What were their suggestions for how to improve social connectedness and social belonging? So I gathered their input on those physical Post-it notes and then put it all together on a larger Post-it note and brought it to my office and thought about it.
And I unknowingly did a pretty similar thing with my students with virtual Post-its, but my first survey revealed the lowest score for the class was in self-efficacy. So I thought, well, this would be a fun thing to focus on in my intervention. So I shared the results with the students, and then I followed up with, you know, I had seen that they were actually becoming more self-reliant during the quarter, especially with our quarter-long project on gene annotation. They were learning these skills and getting better and better. So I kind of nudged them that direction and said, hey, where are you gaining confidence? You know, and a lot of them ended up saying that the lab was a place where they were feeling more and more confident, which is great. And then I gave them the opportunity to say, you know, how can we help each other in areas where you are less confident, and got a number of things suggesting really content-specific ways that I can help and things that I actually already provide them. I use that opportunity to redirect the students towards those resources and really get them to come to the TLC, to my student hours, and saw really good benefits from that.
And I should add that my intervention after sitting in my office and thinking about it and reading these notes is that I provided more ad hoc opportunities for students to interact with each other in the classroom. So giving them more chance to do peer reviews, small group talk, anything like that. I will note that my attendance dropped significantly in week 3 or 4. This is not a class where there's an exam. This is a skills-based class. And so that was one of my biggest challenges. The results of our post surveys, you can see here, the T-Biomed 310 class is shown in blue, and the T-Bio 305 class, Jack's class, is shown in orange. So these are our pre and post numbers for the different learning conditions in the survey. I think we'll leave it there.
Well,
Need a moment?
just, you know, the bitter irony of giving an Elevate talk and then seeing my self-efficacy score go down is not lost on me.
Given that we have 41 seconds left, let's go to our takeaways. My takeaway was that I did see some changes in learning conditions that I didn't specifically target with my interventions. And so my question that's lingering is, do the targeted interventions actually lead to specific outcomes, or is it just a broader improvement of students and how they feel?
Yes. My reflection is that the timing really matters on these surveys. They had just gotten kind of their tails kicked on a quiz right before they were prompted to do the second survey. So they maybe were feeling less self-efficacious at that point. But I think the thing that we saw, and I don't know if people noticed, but the trust and fairness in our transparent teaching practice, I think is something to be mindful as we keep moving forward and trying to improve our classes. They trust us even though we're making things difficult on them.
Thank you.
So, first of all, I want to thank everyone who was responsible for organizing the SEP. It was a great experience. Things happened that I didn't expect, and I appreciate it very much. And such a range of interests in improving the experience that our students have. I really, I feel much better today. It's been a long day. I just finished the lab literally an hour ago, so it's long. Maybe if you remember on the slide that Jutta left, the growth mindset's very high. When I visited with my colleagues over in Key 202, a great space, I recommend you come and visit, Scott Rehrman said, I wonder if there's a placebo effect. If we just tell students that we support their growth and that we're all about the growth mindset, and maybe we mention Carol Dweck or show something. I thought, yeah, that's great. I believe there might be, but my motivation was how can I literally support students' growth? And in one of our workshops, 3 elements were identified: work, strategy, and support. So I thought I would try to begin implementing. I want to give a meta example of growth mindset, which is, yeah, not all of this is working for me, and I'm improving as I go along. But I see so much collaborative work. I'm really, when I teach and enjoy, I walk down the hall, and when I see tables pushed together, I'm glad that many of us are doing that. I think that's really important. One of the things that I ask students to do is to make a study plan, and they got points for it. I have a grid, I have a picture of it here, where they would indicate when they're studying for my class, right? And really what came out of this for me was emphasizing that learning is a physical process. And Descartes was wrong. There is no mind-body dichotomy. What happens below the neck and what happens above the neck is exactly the same. When my students gave me the first version of their study plans, they included things like when they go to the gym. And so what I'm using is that when you study, it's like a workout, yeah? And instead of thinking of it as study time, it's workout time. And I also mentioned it's very important to recover, just like when you're trying to run a half marathon. You don't run 50 miles a day. You train, you rest and recover, and all of that's important for their learning. I pulled this from somewhere. It says, you know, the legislature's paying for you to be here, and what they want is 3 hours of work for every credit that they're paying for. So that's something for you to gauge how much you're budgeting, and also for me. So here's my little grid. I have them just fill it out. They get points if it's got markings on it. I don't try to judge them at all. I do point, again, in our little workshop, is if you're doing the work, you're not getting the results, maybe you need to strategize. The TLC is a great resource. I have a nice workbook that I really like and can offer usually just 1 or 2 suggestions. I think, though, one of the most important things that came out of the SEP was support. And one of the points that I've tried to make to students is I send them on a scavenger hunt around the campus, and I tell them, the people there have been trained to lie to you. They lie. They say all these services are free. No, they're not. You already paid for them. And if you're not using them, that's a budget issue. One of the things that I think is really important is because we have students that go from class, or class, lab, car. They don't really know what's out there in Mattress Factory. Have them go and meet a person, and then they become a resource. So supporting the whole student and using the resources of the university has been, I think, what I'm really trying to get better at. Thank you.